what do I think I know that I either don't really know or actually isn't true at all? And most often that's going to relate to taking something personally, where we think we know that this person is being unkind to me. This person is being rude to me. Maybe it's not about you at all. That's almost a harsh reality to see, where our human being is taking other people's experiences and making it about ourselves. Other people are struggling and we're making it about me when it's not about you at all. And this is something the ego loves to do. The ego loves to make everything about itself. Like, it has plans on Tuesday and it starts raining, and so the ego says, God hates me. Well, maybe it's not about you. Nikki asks, how can I not allow general rudeness to have an effect on my personality? I used to have patience, and how can I get that patience back? She says, rudeness is constant where I live, and it wasn't this bad in the past, I assume. You know, I find these things quite fascinating. And just a big old disclaimer once again. I'm just talking to myself. I'm just sharing my perspective. I'm assuming my experience in your experience and sharing what I would see. And so it's not a declaration of how you should see. I'm just sharing for the playful sake of sharing. But these concepts, such as rudeness, I find fascinating because there's the assumption that when people are being rude, they're being rude to you. And this sets up a world of difficulty when we take things personally. And I just invite an exploration of this in a very self-compassionate, non-judgmental sort of way, where if you encounter somebody that appears to be rude, do you see how it becomes even more rude when you take it personally? And can you see how if you didn't take it personally at all, their rudeness probably wouldn't even register as rudeness? Meaning, if I encounter somebody who is clearly going through a difficult time and not being nice to themselves, I can see how that would result in the expression of what we call rudeness. But them not being nice to themselves and them having a difficult time, and what comes out of their mouth doesn't mean it's about me. In fact, I'd go so far as to say that the way people treat other people is a reflection that shows me how they treat themselves. So if I encounter somebody who is in appearance rude to me, they're essentially showing me that they are rude to themselves. Now the question is, okay, what do you do after that awareness? For me, there's a compassion that emerges. Because there's a very obvious confusion where they feel distant from love. They feel unworthy. They feel painfully inadequate. They're scared. And they don't know what to do with that. And so it's like spilling out on the surface. And this just dramatically changes my interaction with that person. One, it transforms from a defensiveness to a curiosity. Now, I'm not making any declarations of how one should respond. But what I am suggesting is an awareness in the different ways we can see these things and how we make it way more difficult than it actually is based on our determination to take things personally. Because in one regard, they can be showing me how poorly they treat themselves, and I feel moved to hold a space and let them be verbally abusive because I compassionately understand the pain they're going through. So I can just hold a space and just let them get that out. And on the other hand, there could be a scenario where I'm just not in a space to do that. And so it's like, okay, well, if this is what's happening right now, if this is where you are, I'm just not going to participate. But I'm sorry that you're hurting, and I'm sorry this is difficult for you, but I'm going to go somewhere else. or I'm just going to communicate my non-interest in the dynamic if I'm unable to leave that situation somehow. And this also speaks to a depth of self-honesty that allows yourself to be honest in such a way. Now, again, a lot of times people don't allow themselves to be honest because they're afraid of being rejected. They're afraid of what the other person might think. They're afraid that they might leave you. There's 1,000 examples, but it does come back to this pathway of radical self-honesty and honoring what is sincere and true within you. And yes, granted, there's lots of different variables and dynamics that would make different responses more appropriate than others. But again, at the foundation, it comes back to at least allowing yourself to be honest with yourself about what's really going on, with both regard to how you really feel about it and to what and to what regard are you taking things personally, where maybe you don't need to be. The question of how can I not allow rudeness to have an effect on me? I wouldn't start there. I would again come back to the question of what's really true, because maybe the effect it's having on you is the doorway for you to see more clearly. Because as I've said 1,000 times over, our emotional disturbance is in response to not seeing things clearly. So if I'm emotionally disturbed, which is the result of, for example, taking something personally, then my disturbance is the result of me not seeing something clearly. So being disturbed is an alarm that invites me to question what I think I'm seeing. It invites me to question my assumptions. It invites me to question what I think I know. You see, that's a teacher. So the question isn't, how do I get rid of the teacher? Maybe the question is, how can I hear what the teacher is saying? And this can be difficult as well, too, if we're holding on to past versions of ourselves, right? Like, oh, I used to not be disturbed so much, and so I want to get back to that. Well, maybe you're going through a new degree of growth, right? Maybe you're expanding. So maybe it's necessary that you're going through this right now. That's perfectly valid. So maybe we can just take a breath and be open to the possibility that this is the lesson right now. This is what it's supposed to be. And it also invites a profound humility. Like, if we're struggling with something, we can say, oh, help me hide from this struggle because it makes me look bad. Or maybe I can just be honest and be like, wow, I'm really struggling with this. There's something I'm not seeing. Like, as I talked about in the beginning, it's an invitation to investigate what we think we know to see that we don't really know. And as I also mentioned, to investigate how these disturbances are a result of thinking we know something that we don't really know. So that might be a wise question to ask. In the disturbance, what do I think I know that I either don't really know or actually isn't true at all? And most often, that's going to relate to taking something personally, where we think we know that this person is being unkind to me. This person is being rude to me. Maybe it's not about you at all. Which is actually quite interesting, because that's almost a harsh reality to see, where our human being is taking other people's experiences and making it about ourselves. Right? Could you imagine? Other people are struggling and we're making it about me when it's not about you at all. And this is something the ego loves to do. The ego loves to make everything about itself, right? Like, it has plans on Tuesday and it starts raining. And so the ego says, God hates me. It's like, well, maybe it's not about you. Right? Maybe this is about life being life and it's not God out to get you. Maybe it's just not about you at all.